and welcome to the YouTube crew as geomagnetic storms and unrest continue. Following by far the biggest geomagnetic storm of 2026, but alas, it's early in the year, so we could see some even more exciting events happening. We put up a video of the past like 4 or 5 days, just a video showing the SDO and the coronagraphs. You can see the proton events striking the apertures, creating all kinds of snow on the cameras. It's been exciting times for space weather. And of course, if you've got pictures or video of the aurora at your location, tag us on social media, tell us where you're located. You can find our social media on our homepage, smashomash.com. That's SMASHOMASH.com. Today we'll be talking about space weather and Earth weather. It's a little bit on the cool side here in Lehigh Valley, Pennsylvania. And I haven't gotten to see any aurora, so it's been clear, but I've been like asleep most of the time when aurora have been happening. It's just, like you gotta like rest when it's time to rest, and getting photos and video of the aurora, it's not easy. So cheers to everybody who has. Again, you can find us all over social media on the homepage at SmashoMash, on Twitter and Facebook and so forth. But the best place to share space weather stuff is certainly on Twitter. So join us over there. Tag us. And if you want to name solar filaments after living people, follow the hashtag #NameThatFilament. And we'll do just that. We should actually do that on Instagram too. So maybe that's something to do in 2026. Start naming coronal plasma filaments, both on Instagram, which we'll share to Facebook as well. The meta platforms. And hey there, Bruce, how are things? And while I get set up to talk about space and Earth weather, let's talk about AI slop. So I think we've reached peak AI slop at this point, because people are only so tolerant of it, because it's terrible trash that needs to be erased, eradicated, and eliminated from the internet forever. There are far too many AI users of the internet, and there are far too many search bots and web crawlers and all kinds of things just writing content as we speak. There's all kinds of, quote, content, end quote, being written right now that is absolutely worthless. And not only that, the large language models that everybody thinks are going to somehow magically breed artificial general intelligence, those LLMs, large language models, they're not intelligent. So there's that. That's kind of important, right? Yeah, it's all misbranded. I mean, the AI, there's no I in the AI. So, it's a problem, because when you misbrand something this badly, accountability always comes, folks. Accountability comes for everybody at some point. There's no escaping it. Accountability, good luck. Good luck escaping accountability, because you can't. The universe, it does not forgive. It does not forget. So yeah, if you're going to defraud people over and over again for years and years, people are going to notice. They're not going to like it. Many of them are going to retaliate, and your credibility is not coming back. So don't cash it in. Seems like an easy concept to grasp, but I guess it's a lot to understand. Cashing in your credibility is bad for your health and for everything, really, especially if you're a big content creator. If you're a content creator that has 700,000 subscribers on YouTube and you're just spouting nonsense, it's gonna come home to roost. So you know what I mean? You can't escape. There is no escape from reality. So all of this AI slop that nobody wants, Nobody wants the AI slop. So anyway, we're showing some images here of the closest star. That's the 94 angstroms wavelength ionized iron, one of the many ionized iron species covered by the GOES 19 SUVI. We did have a couple M-class events. One from over here on the limb, that's the most recent one, as well as one right here in the center of the solar disk. So we may have more ejecta headed this way, but it's not a major CME like the one that is just subsiding now. So yeah, it's been good times for space weather and bad times for the wizards of AI because there's no there. Like, and let's talk about the economy a little bit. Electricity bills. Need I say more than electricity bills? I mean, the amount of resources required to factor a small 3-digit number are vast, where a person could do it with like expending like 3 calories to factor a 3-digit number. AI requires what? 16 trillion terawatts of electricity. Is it worth it? Is the ROI there, folks? Where's the I? I hear all the talk about AI, but there's no I. Where's the I? It's unintelligent. It's misbranded. What? AI? What? What? The only thing that's artificial is that it's intelligent. I guess we'll have to make that one into a highlight. So yeah, it's artificial that it's intelligent. That's where it ends. Like, what is up with the branding? Can anything be branded like to be called what it actually is? That might be nice. Yeah. Anyway, so yeah, this is we're looking at the last 12 hours here, and like I said, there were some flares, like this M-class event over here on the eastern limb, which you can see right there. That was at about 6 o'clock this morning, Universal Time. Since then, it's been pretty chill, but that's a decent M-class event right there. And that was actually around 7:30. Peak flux was around 710. It was an M3 solar flare, so that's pretty decent. And here's what the closest star is looking like right now. There's the SDO imagery, that's 304 angstroms. The delightful ionized helium spectra, which is extreme ultraviolet light, by the way, that's not visible light. And of course, you can only see these spectra from space. So these particular emissions do not make it to the ground. So that's the SDO, which flies an interesting orbit in sort of a figure-8 pattern over the central Pacific Ocean. Anyway, now, as we forecasted, we do see a major 4-bush minimum here. That is what you see when you have major coronal mass ejection impacts, and of course, when you see proton events. So that's a massive dip in cosmic ray flux, and that is something that everybody who understands the physics expects to happen when we have major CME impacts. So that's the Oulu neutron monitor. You'll see that similarly depicted there at DOMC Antarctica. There's DOMB Antarctica. And I'm sure Thule and, Athens and Mexico City and Moscow, they all show that same thing. Let's see if there are any additional CMEs on the way here. I wonder if that'll work, if I download the file. Let's see what happens. It's this browser. We've switched to Chromium browser because, browsers are full of a lot of features that nobody wants. So anyway, here's the Huxt forecast. I'll gladly show it in the media player here instead. And there's that CME that's already showed up. Beyond that, just a coronal hole high-speed stream on the way in a day or two. No new coronal mass ejections apparently headed toward Earth, at least according to that. There you can see this ongoing geomagnetic storm. Let's bring up the 3-day solar wind data so you can see that entire impact. And there you can see that CME impact very well depicted. KP8. And yeah, that's an AP. The AP was up to 73 there. And the peak of this was sort of right around here when we had a total field of 90 nanotesla. Even though the BZ was positive 55, that was still enough to induce lots of aurora over planet Earth. So it's not anything like what it would have been if this was negative 55. So this causes some different physics effects. This is more of a push than it is a lot of induced current. A negative BZ, that's the vertical component, this red line here. Negative BZ, you know, people in Hawaii would have been able to see the aurora with a 90 nanotesla field, the interplanetary magnetic field represented by the solar wind. So we also had very high speeds at that time for the solar wind. So right around that same moment, we saw nearly 1,100 kilometers per second for the solar wind velocity. So even though it was only at about 1.5 protons per cubic centimeter there, that's still so fast. Remember, folks, Newton's F equals ma. A proton traveling at 2 million miles an hour is a pretty energetic proton indeed. So we're just showing this diagram to show folks where the solar wind is measured, way out here at Lagrangian point 1. And actually, I'm going to bring up something that we haven't been showing here, but we're going to bring this back. The Geospace Magnetosphere movies. This shows a model of what the system looks like. And we're just going to show the magnetohydrodynamic pressure here. There is the Earth system. So this goes out to about 12 Earth diameters. That is the magnetosphere. And you're looking at it here from the equatorial plane and then from like a top view, the meridional plane. So sun side would be to your left and dark side, night side of the planet, and midnight would be to your right. So you can see the magnetotail and so forth. And keep in mind that red, that represents higher magnetohydrodynamic pressure. We're going to show all 3 of the Magnetosphere movies today. And I do see your comments there. Keep them coming. We will get those addressed, at least the ones that are relevant to anything. And we'll even put them on the screen, sort of. There you go. And thanks for sending a super chat, Barbarian1111. All right, so that's the magnetohydrodynamic pressure. We'll also show the density. Keep in mind this shows high density in dark blue and low density in white. If you want to read about how this model is generated, it's based on the space weather modeling framework. It involves a lot of things, everything from the electron flux to magnetograms to magnetometers, rather. And then, of course, the solar wind, density, velocity, magnetic field, orientation, and so on. So that is the model for the density. A decent model on what is likely going on there. And you can see a lot of low density plasma all around planet Earth. Here's the velocity. What's cool about this is that it's going to show you the solar wind being re-accelerated out of the magnetotail as it gets reintegrated into the solar wind. And of course, at the front end here, the bow shock side, which would be your screen left. So it's pretty wild when you have geomagnetic storms. And that's a good model for what things may look like out there. Keep in mind, this is a model. If you want to read about the space weather modeling framework on which this is based, the SWMF, there is a details tab on this page. It's part of the NOAA Space Weather Prediction Center. Just click on the details tab. It will even show you the data that are used to generate these models. Just keep in mind they are models, not direct observations. So moving on here to the Space Weather Enthusiast dashboard. I don't know what that means, so cancel. just freaking refresh the page when I press F5 and don't ask me stupid questions, browser? Thanks. Thanks, AI. You're doing a fine job, quote, AI, end quote. So anyway, NOAA's forecast is for continued geomagnetic storm conditions and unrest to continue into tomorrow. So they've actually extended the forecast here. Like we said on the channel, there was some additional ejecta behind the main CME that struck. So yeah, it struck hard, but there was a bunch of trailing ejecta that was sort of chasing it through the heliosphere, and it's been arriving. So no real surprise there. Keep in mind, like we said earlier, there is a coronal hole high-speed stream on the way as well. Here's some more data about space weather. The weather in between the D layer of the ionosphere and the sun. There is the 10.7 centimeter radial flux from Solon.info, and it is currently at 170. It's gone up a little bit, so quite a high likelihood for large solar flares, believe it or not. That's quite a high radial flux. And the sunspot number here is now all the way up to, it's down now. All right, so sunspots must have either degraded or set or both. So there is, let's see, 110, 120. We got about 128 sunspots now, according to the King's Observatory in Belgium. Now, early this morning, more Earth-directed CMEs could have been generated, so let's see if those would be appearing yet. Not sure. If so, that would be kind of stealthy. So we will consult stereo A. Remember, we did have some solar flares here, so those may have been associated with a coronal mass ejection, but nothing too definitive there. We do see some activity, but we'll have to get more data here. So let's look at the Integrated Space Weather Analysis Center. We'll bring up the stereo A coronagraph, otherwise known as the Core 2 Space Weather Beacon. It is located a couple of months ahead of Earth. All right, so there is our stereo A coronagraph. And I'm going to come back to that in a minute. All right, there we go. All right, so if we would have an Earth-directed CME, it would be appearing over on this side of the screen because Earth is in this orientation from the perspective of stereo A. Yeah, I don't see any Earth-directed ejecta there, so no new space weather on the way besides that coronal hole high-speed stream, and it looks like it's going to be minor. This is the location of the planets. I like to use the planetstoday.com. Keep in mind that is not to scale. Proton event is subsiding, although we still do have some increased radiation for things like polar flights and astronauts. That's the GOES proton flux. Here's our X-ray flux. Like we said, there were some M-class events, 2 of them in the past 24 hours. The largest one being an M3, which does not appear to have been associated with any coronal mass ejections. Next, the heliosphere. Like I said yesterday, the Earth should now be in a South Pole-oriented magnetic sector, and the boundary is about to be crossed. So there you can see Earth just about to move into this South Pole-oriented sector. That means one current sheet, another current sheet, and then the South Pole sector. So it's coming. Could already be here, but it will definitely be here in a couple of hours. Next is the line of sight coronal hole plot. That's going to show us that South Pole-oriented coronal hole. That's going to provide some high-speed solar in a few days. But it's going to be pretty minor and probably sporadic because this is not a well-defined coronal hole, although it may appear to open up as it rotates toward Earth because the solar corona is very bumpy and three-dimensional. All right, let me get to your chats here, but first I'm going to bring up the magnetogram. So we'll leave that on screen. El Tide. How about El Tide? El Tide saw the sunrise before we did, so let's Let the whole thing play there. Here we go. And here are your comments. Thanks to everybody who typed something. Congratulations on realizing the channel exists. If you're new to the channel, press subscribe or you might miss the world's most comprehensive propaganda-free daily space weather videos. We're not only the most comprehensive, we're also propaganda and nonsense-free. Back musique. Are you Amish? What do you mean Amish? Bruce Manas. AI is blind. Yeah, AI is blind. It doesn't know anything. That's the problem. It doesn't know anything. Large language models that are able to compose a coherent sentence, they don't know what the sentence means. If they did, they'd be able to spell things. Large language models aren't even labeled right because they don't understand language. They're machine learning. All they are is probability models that are saying this word is more likely to come after that word. That is literally all they do. Is that intelligent? Newsflash, that's not intelligence. Should look into Mercury and Saturn, some weird stuff going on with how Mercury manipulates EMF and Saturn's moon putting out twice the energy it takes in. I mean, the other planets are interesting, but they aren't space weather. So, I'm interested in Mercury and Saturn and weird stuff going on. As far as how Mercury manipulates EMF, I don't know what that's supposed to mean. Mercury definitely does not manipulate EMF. I mean, Mercury has a magnetic field. It's pretty weak, if I recall, but it doesn't manipulate EMF to the extent, to any greater extent than Earth does. In fact, a lot less than to the extent that Earth, quote, manipulates EMF. As far as Saturn's moon putting out twice the energy it takes in, that's a claim. I mean, I don't know what you mean by that. What kind of energy? You just say, you see in the realm of science, you can't just say energy. Like, are you talking about infrared light? Like, what are you talking about? Energy. You can't just say energy. That's meaningless. Mercury gas, a weird axis, about 10% off pole, and it protects Mercury from immense EMF. It's crazy. Well, that sounds like Earth's magnetic field, so I don't know what's so interesting about it. Barb, when mainstream media starts talking about it, you have to question it. I just question anything that I hear about, anything that I know about, anything that people believe, I question. I believe Mercury is like that water planet from Star Wars, lol. Well, there's very little water on Mercury. I mean, there probably is some water on Mercury. It's awfully close to a really large hydrogen source called the sun. Way closer than Earth, right? But I mean, it's like that water planet from Star Wars? What? Which water? I don't get it. Mercury is not watery. I mean, we have very detailed maps of what Mercury's surface looks like. Not anything like normal aurora, in my opinion. The aurora is totally normal, Barbarian 1111. I don't know what you're talking about. The aurora is totally normal, and it's exactly what we would expect to see with the solar wind data that we saw during this geomagnetic storm. Mystica 19 says scary. I don't know why or what. If you mean the sun is scary, you shouldn't be scared of the sun. It's the source of all life and energy on Earth. Saturn's moon Titan is most perplexing. Yes, so Titan is something I know something about. It's got massive lakes of ethane. So Titan, it's a very cold place, and it has lakes, if not oceans, of ethane, which is a hydrocarbon. I mean, there's very minimal oxygen on Titan, which means you can't just light the whole planet up like a giant candle. I mean, the whole moon. But yeah, there are oceans of ethane, and there's an ethane rain, which means there's a great fuel source. A great fuel source. Titan, if you're going to use fossil fuels while you're in space. So it is an interesting place, to say the least. Bruce says only coffee saves. Cheers. I'm drinking some right now. So everybody, take this opportunity to have yourself a sip. It might say vegetable soup. It's black Sumatran organic. Black Sumatran organic. You can probably find it on our Amazon store. It's pretty cheap, actually. So yeah, we switched to organic coffee back in 2019, maybe, and we haven't been jittery since. So pesticides, herbicides, fungicides. Ever hear of those? All right, let's see. Tectonic movement killed the dinosaurs. Ha ha ha. Yeah, the dinosaurs, they couldn't get out of the way of plate tectonics. Okay, what's your prediction on space weather for rest of 2026? More geomagnetic storms. Yeah, more geomagnetic storms. That's my prediction for the rest of space weather in 2026. So, like we said earlier in this solar cycle, we've been covering this for about 7 years now. Since earlier in this solar cycle, there was a shortage of coronal holes. So now we're making up for that because the solar polar fields, they have to do their reversal process. So they're doing it as we forecasted. So plenty of transequatorial coronal holes moving forward, plenty of CMEs, and plenty of flaring for the rest of the year. We're still barely a year out from solar maximum. So there's plenty of time, and oftentimes we see the most exciting space weather happen on the downslide. So that's what I expect. More activity, more emphasis on space weather. As private spaceflight emphasis continues to increase, the importance of space weather will increase as well. Eventually, it's going to look just like regular old everyday meteorology. We didn't just place ourselves here for fun. I considered majoring in cosmology in the mid-1990s, and I said, no, because heliophysics is incomplete. Our basis for knowing what's going on in distant galaxies is based on heliophysics. So if a major breakthrough occurs in heliophysics, and we suddenly start changing our beliefs about what's inside of stars, I'll just say that. If we suddenly start changing our belief of what's inside of stars, it's going to rewrite cosmology. So just so you're aware of that. It's kind of important. All right. All right, so yeah, here are our magnetograms. This is El Teide, Spain, located on Gran Canaria. And there are a bunch of cyclists there right now. Like, last I checked, Filippo Ganna is actually on Gran Canaria. It's a great place for off-season training. You get to ride big mountains in the North Atlantic where it's actually not that cold. So yeah, El Teide, Spain, there is the ground-based observatory. And these sunspots are looking pretty stable here. I'm not seeing any major changes. If you disagree, let us know in the comments. But I'm pretty sure I'm right on this one. Let's take a look at the red light imagery. We'll stick with El Teide here. So a little dip in sunspot number here. I don't know. There's a little bit of degradation there. Yeah, some spots have vanished here. The equatorial sunspots have vanished. Those probably have a tendency to be the shortest lived sunspots. I'm not sure on that one. But it would make sense as per how they typically evolve. So, yeah, I mean, this group here, this is a beta gamma class sunspot. It has already produced an M class flare. And then these are pretty magnetically complex as well. Let's go back to the magnetogram here. What happened? I went the wrong way. All right, there you go. Yeah, so these two groups here, these are still capable of producing large solar flares. They still do have interacting plasma between them. There are some filaments that kind of stretch across these active regions here. So there is a lot of plasma still pointed at Earth, I guarantee it. And we're going to show you some in a minute. But first, the filaments. So there is the hydrogen alpha imagery, and this is going to show bright features hanging off the edge of the sun. Those are the same thing as the dark features here that are overlapping the solar disk. So these are the same thing. When you see these, they're oriented toward the Earth. And we have a number of massive filaments. I mean, there are a huge number of filaments right on the Earth side of the disk right here. So don't be surprised to see more CMEs headed Earth's way, trailing that coronal hole high-speed stream that'll be here. In about 2 days, we'll see the density shock from that. It's going to be pretty minor. NOAA tends to agree. Again, make sure you follow us on X if you haven't already done so. The address is x.com/smashomash. Again, if you want to name filaments after living humans, just follow the hashtag #NameThatFilament. Put the name of the person you want named, tag them on Twitter, and more importantly, tag me on Twitter. Actually, just tag me on Twitter and name the person who you want named. Because here's why, folks. If you put 2 ats or 2 hashtags on one tweet, your tweet automatically gets deboosted. I think it was just yesterday, maybe 2 days ago. Everybody's phony savior, Elon Musk, the free speech advocate who has more accounts banned than were ever banned under Jack Dorsey and who applies more censorship than Jack Dorsey did to Twitter. He released the boosting and deboosting features of Twitter. So it shows you the formula for how your tweets get shadow banned and how your tweets get boosted. Now, Elon's tweets get automatically deboosted because what Elon Musk did in purchasing Twitter is akin to what Kanye West did when he grabbed the mic from Taylor Swift. That's what he did. He just grabbed the mic so that he can have his own idiotic voice amplified. His own tweets are like, he's like, oh, I gotta be more popular than Barack Obama. And then he artificially boosted himself so much that he had more followers than Barack Obama. And then he dialed back the boosting a little bit because, oh, everybody knows that Elon's not as popular as Barack Obama, right? I mean, wow. The level of pathetic is off the fucking charts. Like, you can't make this shit up. It's more pathetic than you could possibly imagine. Electron flux here is recovering to storm levels. So this is because the magnetosphere is reeling from the incoming space weather. And we're going to see big-time electron storms here moving forward. So we had big-time electron storms here. You can see we're well over the warning levels day after day. Here we were at like 3 times the warning levels. That's not really that high. We've spent like a week at a time at 30 times warning levels. So keep in mind, this is 10 times, 10 times, 10 times, 10 times, 10. So this is this is orders of magnitude here. So anyway, expect your GPS to be working pretty badly because of all of these electrons. This is the total electron content forecast. This is going to show you where the GPSs will be least functional. I see Mike Bordages is putting up pathetic sycophant nonsense about Elon Musk, as he usually does. If you'd like to drop some terrible investing advice in the chat as well, Mike, feel free. Mike will tell you to just buy Bitcoin and Tesla. Diversify your portfolio on the same scale that his is by having two speculative investments that are tied together and not inversely correlated. Great idea. Duh, buy more Tesla stock. Fully self-crashing cars are totally going to be fully self-driving in your imagination. Barbarian 1111, that's a good quote. When you tear out a man's tongue, you are not proving him a liar. You're only telling the world that you fear what he might say. Exactly. This is one of the many reasons why censorship is ineffective and idiotic. Orange Sunrise says sometimes the actual evil ones have nothing in the world. Material possessions are dead weight. Evil knows. I know, right? How many possessions do you have to own before your possessions own you? Right? That's an existential question for you. So the proton event continues here. We're seeing major high frequency radio blackouts, especially around the South Pole. But as you can see, also some around the North Pole, which are subsiding. So those are going to be mostly, only some frequencies are blacked out here. And when you see a solar flare, then you see equatorial radio blackouts. Proton events cause polar radio blackouts as radiation is emitted by those high energy protons orbiting Earth's magnetic polar field lines. This is just a diagram showing you the altitudes of the regions, like the F region and so forth. And it's showing you how they change altitudes at daytime and nighttime because of incoming solar radiation and so forth. Let's take a look at the ionosphere here, because we've been noting movement of the South Atlantic anomaly on the channel. So we're going to show both the anomalygram and the raw megahertz of the F flare. So there is, let's blow that up a little bit. That's a little better. That's not bad. I like it. All right. So here is the raw vibrational frequency there. That's the megahertz, millions of vibrations per second of the ionosphere, the F flare, which again, it's depending on if it's day or nighttime, somewhere between, say, 3 and 100 kilometers of altitude. 1 to 300 kilometers of altitude there, depending on if it's nighttime or daytime side of the planet. Now, the South Atlantic anomaly now looks like it's back here near the equator. So now these could be seasonal changes that happen every year. I don't pay enough attention to really notice, because the South Atlantic anomaly isn't dangerous unless you're on a satellite, especially a low orbit satellite, because the South Atlantic anomaly represents a spot where you got to fly through much higher ion contents, which causes charging, sometimes on the surface, sometimes internal, and that can damage or de-elevate your satellite, cause it to burn fuel, cause it to crash entirely. Anyway, here's the anomalygram. That's anomaly in megahertz from a 30-day median. Lots of low frequency anomalies there, as the ionosphere is all over the place because it's being banged on like a gong. So that is what you see when you see major geomagnetic storms. And since we've had plenty, that's what you get. You know, it's very interesting because you can be extremely rich and own nothing, okay? The Dalai Lama, fine example. He owns a robe, a laptop, and a pair of glasses. His possessions do not own him. There comes a point where you've painted yourself into a corner, folks. And I've noticed a lot of tech billionaires painting themselves into corners that they will never emerge from. Because when your credibility is trashed, Good luck getting it back. Good luck getting it back. We've seen plenty of that on YouTube. YouTube space weather hacks, for example, are a prime example of those whose credibility is gone forever. Get lost forever. Good job. Give you an A, a gold star. You think you're clever? Check it out. It's the sunrise over the Atlantic as we transition from space weather to Earth weather. And I'm not going to open up anything extra here, but there you go. There's the sunrise over the Atlantic. From the GOES interactive weather satellite. That's the visible satellite there. As the sun returns to the northern hemisphere. Mike Bordages states, Elon Musk works 7 days a week and sleeps in a sea can on the factory floor. Well, that sounds like a pathetic life. He sounds poor, Mike. He sounds poor. And I would remind all of our viewers that poor is a mindset. Poor and broke aren't the same thing. Broke might be a temporary, inconvenient financial status, whereas poor is a mindset. Let me explain the difference. Poor people go out and buy lottery tickets. Poor people buy $8 spices in little tiny jars at the grocery store. Rich people have rich lives. They do things like raise their children, have credibility, don't lie to people constantly about very important substantive things worth trillions of dollars. Don't try to create technology that is extremely dangerous to the population, like fully self-crashing cars, etc. Rich people don't need to tell lies. Ask Warren Buffett. He has extremely high credibility. Elon Musk has Sam Altman level credibility. Sam Altman and Elon Musk, they're like two clones of each other. What a joke. Who listens to those dudes? People that are in the Croissant Earth Society don't listen to them because they know. They know that Earth is shaped like a French breakfast pastry. And that Earth is clearly not shaped like a snow globe. Too many people on the internet saying deadbeat world Earth is shaped like a snow globe. But that ain't true. Why you pouring so much cash into stuff nobody wants? AI. A solution. Searching for a problem. Now that I got that out of my system, here's Earth once again, the water vapor map for the US. As more snow heads to the northeast. By the way, there's a terrible ice storm coming to the southern US. We're going to cover it. But first, US Doppler radar map, radar.weather.gov. A government website that has not been taken down. Well, thank you so much, President Trump. Thanks for not taking down the National Weather Service's radar site. You're a scholar and a gentleman. What a genius. Wow. With so much winning, silver's only at $95 an ounce. It's only $95 an ounce for silver, folks. Are you tired of winning yet? What the fuck? What a joke. Chicago getting kaplastered. There's quite a bit of snow around. And in the south, places like Arkansas and Louisiana, there's rain. Anyway, let's check out the windy.com map because I want to show you the sick temperatures. I went for a little hike this morning with the insides of my nostrils frozen because it was like single digits. Check it out, windy.com reporting that Allentown, 7 degrees Fahrenheit. Look at that. Fairfax, South Carolina. Furman, South Carolina, 30 degrees, y'all. Oh, man. Thanks for the cold air, Canada. Really appreciate that. Look at some of the temperatures in Maine. -4 Fahrenheit, dudes. That is too cold to be on a chairlift. All right. So, yeah, that's, it's shockingly cold right now. Not a good day to be working on a car. It'll make you say, son of a bittern. That's a bittern, by the way. It's a type of wading bird. It's almost like an egret or a heron. It's one of those type bird dudes. They go wading around and they point their beak up in the air because they're very well camoed. That's a good outfit. Real tree bark 2026 coming soon. Son of a bittern camo. All right, so we're going to show total positive snow depth change because there's a lot of conjecture about us getting a foot of snow in eastern PA. As far as the next 3 days, well, that's not enough time to show that forecast. But the forecasts are all over the place. So we're just going to show that. '72-hour GFS forecast. So that is how it's going to start out. Keep in mind this forecast here, this ends at 6 o'clock Universal Time on Saturday morning. So this is before the Sunday snow assault. But there's going to be an ice event down here, which is going to be even deadlier than the big snows. So check this out. We're just going to advance this manually here. Look at some of the snow totals there for Georgia. The GFS model is forecasting 2 feet of snow for parts of Georgia here. So, but keep in mind, there are variables here that can affect this. And one of those variables is going to be the jet stream. So the jet stream is going to determine sort of where the cold air gets to and where the moist air is pushed to. I'll just say that. So let's just show the jet stream forecast here. As things get clearer, we'll keep showing you these forecasts because people in eastern PA do not want 12 more inches of snow at this point because it's been pretty wintry this winter. So people not super excited about that, especially we cyclists. Oh, nice. You've been invested in gallium. That's cool. All right. Let me see if there are any comments worth responding to here. So Me Coffee asks, is there a chart or live data for Earth's magnetosphere / magnetic field strength for the public to access? All right, that's a great question. And yes, there is data like that. Let's see. We'll actually add it as a tab here to our coverage. So, yeah, there is. It's the GOES magnetometer. So if you go to the Space Weather Prediction Center and you roll down here, you click on the GOES magnetometer. There it is. There's Earth's magnetic field for the past 3 days. There's the past 7 days. You can see really obviously the major CME impact, and then you can see that subsiding. So, yeah, there is definitely real-time data. The GOES magnetometers are what a son of a bit turn ought to be looking at. So here is the, oh man, there's going to be another massive cold wave. Look at this. Look at this kink in the jet stream. Wow. More cold air from Canada headed your way, Western US. And then it's going to sweep across and it's going to, yeah, that's, dude. So what we're seeing here at the end of 72 hours is a big intensification of this jet stream. All right. And what's going to determine how this storm plays out and how much snow the Northeast gets, the mid-Atlantic states, is going to be whether this thing primarily moves to the east or to the northeast. It looks like it's trending a little bit to the north. The further north this goes, the more snow the Northeast will get. So that is one of the variables to take a look at. Now we're going to show 2-meter temperature anomaly because this is definitely a news story as well right now, since places like Florida have been seeing freezing temperatures, I think. So let's just show the temperature anomaly forecast here. This is in degrees Celsius, by the way. And yeah, look at the cold air creeping in. I mean, Texas is going to see temperatures like 16 degrees Celsius below normal. And imagine what 16 below normal is like in North Dakota. So we'll look at the raw temperatures here too, since this is going to be bonkers. We'll do shaded. I like shaded. Hopefully your weather coverage isn't shaded by people that don't understand junior high level physics. You know, that is a mess. When you're paying attention to somebody on YouTube and taking science info from them and they don't understand science. It's like when you try to debate somebody who's illiterate. You ever tried debating somebody who's illiterate? They can't read or write the language or talk the language. So why would you debate them? Same with a science illiterate person. If you're science illiterate, if you know nothing about coding, why the hell am I going to talk to you about coding? If you know nothing about investing, why the hell am I going to talk to you about investing? Temperatures in North Dakota are expected to be at what? Oh yeah, negative 25 degrees Celsius. Negative 27 degrees Celsius showing up there. I mean, degrees Fahrenheit. Fahrenheit. Let's see. Well, there's an 80 plus degree day coming to Miami. And some shocking below zero Fahrenheit temperatures coming to Pennsylvania. Look at that. -2, -6. No, that's just 6. -4 in the western part of the state. That is, man, oh man. It's enough to make you want to buy a heater for your pipes. So just a quick review here. We're getting these are GFS 72-hour forecasts from Tropical Tidbits. There is the temperature forecast in degrees Fahrenheit. 72-hour GFS temperature forecast. Here is the 72-hour temperature anomaly forecast in degrees Celsius. That's anomaly in degrees Celsius. Here's the jet stream forecast depicting the 250 millibar winds. Jet streams are largely responsible for the mixture of warm, moist air and cold, dry air. That's what causes a tornado. And also, GFS 72-hour accumulated positive snow depth change forecast in inches. We're going to close out with nullschool.net as we're wont to do on the channel. Yeah, I saw those Kamchatka videos. I saw some of those on Twitter. There are some interesting snow forts being built in Kamchatka, and I might build one today in my neighborhood. If I do, I'll give you a tour of it because there are so we actually live in a condo, and the utter morons that take care of the grass and the trees and the snow and stuff, they are terrible at their jobs. And they don't understand that they're supposed to do the common areas first. And they haven't done some of the common areas at all. So there's this spot where there's like a sidewalk and some steps go up to the rec center. And there's a huge snowbank at the top of those steps. So this morning I checked it out. I might go back there and cut some blocks of snow out of it. And like, maybe I'll make a snow pyramid or something. I don't know. It could be. But I may make a snow fort. It could happen. If so, I'll share it on YouTube. Yeah. So there's the auroral oval. That's, geomagnetic unrest and storm conditions do continue here, but they are in the process of subsiding. And there is really no new stuff on the way. If you're in Alaska, you still got plenty of opportunity to see the aurora, but it's going to be unlikely for the rest of the U.S. here. Um, but that's the auroral oval at the moment. And let's switch to our regularly scheduled jet streams. There are the polar jet streams, the Arctic jet streams, if you will. Here are the Antarctic jet streams. And yes, it is a pentagon shape, which of course there would be a pentagram in there, if you drew a star, and that's very scary. That anything that's got a shape to it in nature, folks, is something that you should be frightened of, for sure. So definitely be spooked of the Antarctic jet streams. Now, here are the jet streams of the eastern world. Some very cold air being blasted into central Australia here. And shout out to Kimberly, who's getting very hot temperatures, as equatorial air is being blasted into her backyard. Quote from Kimberly, "Don't blast anything into my backyard." Pun intentional. Here are the surface winds of the eastern world. Surface winds of the central world, that's Africa and Europe and the Near East. Incredibly high winds once again in the eastern Mediterranean. Eric Schmidt, it's a windy day. It really blows at Eric Schmidt's place. Yeah, Eric Schmidt, you know who that is? He's one of the founders of Google. He's moved to Cyprus. Yeah, he has a giant compound in Cyprus, a castle. Did you know that Cyprus has no extradition treaty for the U.S.? Just putting out some facts there. Eric Schmidt, folks. Not to be confused with Sergey Brin, Larry Page, or Sundar Pichai. Other board members of Alphabet Incorporated LLC, otherwise known as Google. Jet streams of the central world looking like this, and here are the jet streams of the west. Surface winds of the west looking like this. A strong offshore wind at Nova Scotia and Newfoundland. Not a great day for Leif Erikson to be crossing the Atlantic. All right, it's time to end this thing and stop talking to all you rubes. But first, we're going to show some more solar imagery. So let's bring up the GOES 19. We'll show a few more different wavelengths. Get all your comments out of your system. Maybe we'll address them. And I'll even consider putting them on the screen. So there we go. There are your comments. I'll let them scroll. Oh, I won't let them scroll because that function doesn't work. Thanks, Google. Google. They can't even make a web page function on their own browser. Now, this is Mozilla Firefox. So in Google's defense, I'm not using Chrome. So, but yeah, it doesn't work in Chrome either, last I checked. Just trying to scroll is now a challenge because of the wizards of AI. Thanks, wizards. Did you hear the Microsoft CEO was crying about people using the word microslop because the new piece of trash Microsloth operating system known as Windows 11 barely functions and is super slow? People are replacing computers because they're slow and getting new Windows 11 computers that are slower. Yeah, they're slower. You know why? Because AI is in all features of the program now. So your file explorer has AI features. It has to talk to the cloud or it doesn't work right. And these are not features that you can turn on or off. This is not like, if you're not connected to the internet, can you even browse your files? Ever heard of spyware? I mean, what? AI wants to give me a summary of files. Like if I right click a file, it'll be like, give me an AI summary. And then it has to send the file to the cloud and analyze it. Who the hell wants that? Like what? It's Microsloth, a giant turd, a gleaming turd, as it has been for decades. What a joke. All right, let's see. I like this one. I own nothing on paper. The only way to deal with an unfree world is to become so absolutely free that your very existence is an act of rebellion. I like the defiant attitude. Yes, yes, you win. Right. Real evil doesn't have possessions. They're demonically possessed. Exactly. True evil is of the spirit. Possessions hold evil down. True evil has nothing as choice. Exactly. They've painted themselves into the corner. Sam Altman and Elon Musk and Tim Cook and Sundar Pichai, they've got nowhere to go. I wouldn't trade places with one single one of those people. Those people are death incarnate. Like those people are, they have doomed themselves. Once your credibility is gone, it's never coming back. So become a hermit, Sundar. Go move to a cave somewhere. Never be seen in public again before you become the bridge between a meteor and a meteorite. Mike wants to know how Sam is in the Elon category. So Sam is exactly in the Elon category. I assume you mean Sam Altman. And he's in the Elon category because he lies, openly lies, and it's obvious that he's lying about AI. The only thing that's artificial is that it's intelligence. So the scaling of it, it's complete nonsense. These these compute farms, they're not going to get built. These trillions and trillions of dollars of promises to build compute farms, it's not going to happen. Nobody wants the electric bills to go up tenfold. It's just a joke. It's a joke. Altman is in the same category as Elon Musk because he's a liar. He openly lies and he clearly knows that it's fraud. When you intentionally misrepresent material facts, you've committed fraud. Now, we used to prosecute for that. You know, when there's investor dollars involved, there's an organization called the Securities and Exchanges Commission whose job it is to prosecute fraud. But apparently, we don't prosecute fraud anymore in the US. We're a plutocratic corporatocracy. A plutocratic corporatocracy. Rule by the rich, where the rich elect other rich officials to make the rich even richer by creating corporatism, where the government supports giant international businesses instead of the actual populace. Plutocratic corporatism. That is the form of government in the US. So for everybody who wants to save the fucking democracy or save the fucking republic, we don't have that. We have a plutocratic corporatocracy. Deal with it. Plan accordingly and cast your dollar votes appropriately, please. Now that I've stopped ranting about the plutocratic corporatocracy, I like this one. Give silver to a greedy man. He'll hold on to it until you tell him he's worth more. Or give silver to me because I'll gladly take it off your hands. I don't care how heavy it is. Yeah, that's interesting. Gallium. I mean, I know there's a lot of precious metals like copper and palladium and so on, platinum. Commodities. Commodities will always be worth something. The euro, the yuan, the dollar, they have zero intrinsic value. A, a sack of coffee is always going to have intrinsic value unless it grows mold. like Elon Musk and Sam Altman and Tim Cook and Sundar Pichai's credibility. Yeah, they've grown mold, and unfortunately, the mold is going to have to be eradicated. Yeah, that 4 meters of snow on Kamchatka was pretty bonkers. In fact, I'm going to actually bring that up. I'm going to show a snow depth map because windy.com has a spectacular snow depth map. So let's just briefly show that. And thanks for citing the 4 meter snow in Kamchatka. Let's check this out. Yo, that is legit. Oh my gosh. Look at these areas by the volcanoes. 144 inches. Oh man. Yeah. That is that is legit. Well, look at some of the snow in Alaska. More than 5 meters. All right. Yeah. So yeah, the US has a pretty high albedo right now, and it's going to go up a lot. Look at this. Watch this. There you go. That is a shiny country. So that's Monday morning. Monday morning, the US is going to have a very high albedo. For those of you who don't know what albedo is the reflectivity of the planet. So when you get a lot of snow, a lot of light is reflected back into space. And when the Earth glaciates, the northern hemisphere goes into a runaway cold. It goes into a runaway cold, and the albedo effect is part of that. Also, the shutting down of the NAO, the North Atlantic Oscillation, or you could say the AMOC, the Atlantic Meridional Overturning Circulation. And it's caused by an infusion of fresh water from Greenland. So if the Greenland ice sheet melts, strangely enough, like I said in the late 1980s to my parents, which caused them to go, "What is he talking about?" Global warming causes global colding because, you know, if Greenland melts, then you get too much fresh water and it disrupts the NAO. But fortunately, we don't have that. You see? I know there might be some channels that are idiotically telling you that that is the thing that's going on, but it's not represented in the data because here are ocean currents, super obvious ocean currents. And if you look at sea surface temperature, it's still warm at Iceland and Ireland. So I don't know what the hell you're talking about. Stupid, idiotic YouTube channels that lie about disasters. First of all, there are no global cataclysms. That's not a thing that's ever occurred. So there's that. However, the northern and southern hemisphere behave like separate planets almost. But there are the ocean currents for anybody telling you the NAO is shutting down. I mean, but there it is. I mean, I can see currents getting to Norway here. So what are you talking about? Get your head out of your ass. All right. So that said, let's close this stream out. It's time to say goodbye. And once again, congratulations on realizing the channel exists. It's always delightful having each and every one of you on the stream. Make sure you press the share button and visit our links, which you'll find in the description. Some great merch there. Join the Croissant Earth Society, or perhaps join the Galactic Federation Special Forces and say, with me, Universum Liberate. Anyway, see you next time. I've been your host, Dan, aka Smash-O-Mash, signing off. And until the next geomagnetic storm, may that solar wind be at your back. So just one more quick thing, folks. I wanted to show this real quick. Um, you see the way there are these huge filaments connecting these sunspots? That means that if one sunspot changes drastically all of a sudden, and sunspots do change all the time all of a sudden, if one of those suddenly changes, this plasma, a whole bunch of it, could eject. And it's pretty earthly facing at the moment. So, I mean, this is really a filament that ought to be named, because, you know, if we looked at this from the side, it would look something like this. See this huge filamentary loop here on the the northeastern limb. This filament is kind of like that, but it's much longer. You know what I mean? You can see how long this filament is. There are actually a series of them that are all anchored to different parts of these active regions. So any changes in either of these sunspot groups could result in a rapid CME, and that could be without a flare. So keep in mind, folks, coronal mass ejections and solar flares are a completely separate phenomenon. Uh, a solar flare is photons of the X-ray variety, X-ray frequency photons, and a coronal mass ejection is protons. So think of the difference between a fan and a flashlight. A CME is kind of like a fan, and a solar flare is more like a flashlight, or like an X-ray machine, because it's measuring X-ray flux density, whereas a CME is measuring the density of particles, physical particles, not electromagnetic radiation like photons. So, I mean, I say it all the time, but people are constantly conflating coronal mass ejections with solar flares, and they are not the same thing. Solar flares happen regularly with no coronal mass ejection, and coronal mass ejections happen regularly with no solar flare. So don't get them twisted. They are separate phenomena.